Hello and welcome to another Wordsmith writing tutorial. Remember that you can get more guidance and notes and extension tasks on my blog, which is www.wordsmithcreativewriting.blogspot.com. So our prompt for this week is 155, which is swinging in no wind. And the task is to write a narrative about a playground swing that's swinging with no wind. So this prompt is the first time I've had to think about genre in a narrative, because the idea of a swing swinging with no breeze falls quite nicely into the genre of horror, but not the monsters and jump scare kind of horror. This prompt is about the uncanny and spooky techniques that help create tension in good writing. So our stuff is, what is genre? So before we start on the spooky stuff, we should really have a recap of what genre is. Genre is a classification. It's the way we group stories by the general theme or idea, and they include things like science fiction, horror, fantasy, western, adventure, and more. But stories are really just one thing, so you can combine genres and have something like a fantasy adventure or science fiction horror. So each genre has a particular set of themes or tropes, things that are expected elements in each story. For example, a western will always have a dusty kind of frontier town with a saloon and cowboys and a shootout. So for the starter task this week, I have this table. You can copy paste or just draw it out and fill it in. These ideas are not fixed. Some of the tropes do straddle genres, but what we're looking for is the typical things you'll find in the settings, locations, characters, and events of different kinds of story. So take 5 minutes to fill in what you can. So I've given you a few ideas here. You'll probably have more of your own, and if you really think about it, I expect you could add another column and list books or films that fit in each genre. Things like fantasy is going to be things like Shrek or Tangled. A lot of Disney's fantasy is fairy tale. Westerns, it's True Grit, the Gunsmoke or the Gunslinger. Science fiction is fairly obvious. Horror, you could go for real kind of dramas like Dracula and Frankenstein, or slightly more subtle ones. And then romance is romance. We don't talk about that kind of thing. So we're going to move on to our kind of idea developer for this prompt. It's really hard to write a story with jump scares and kind of boo moments. So instead, we're going to use different techniques to create tension and build up an emotion effect. Most of these effects come from the idea of the uncanny. The uncanny is when we take something we know well, which is normal and light and friendly, and then we change the description until it feels uncomfortable. So take this quick example. You wake in the night, convinced there's someone watching you. You can see a dark figure in the doorway looming over you, so you reach for the lamp in panic. You feel relief as soon as the light comes on. The shadow was the jumper hanging on the back of your door. So in this example, we've taken something you know well, a warm and comforting jumper, and turned it into something unnatural and scary by changing its description. Creating uncanny descriptions for normal things is the best way to build up tension without needing to introduce a monster. Sometimes the monster we imagine is more terrifying than the one that actually arrives. There are 5 things we can change that help to turn comforting things into the uncanny. And here I'll give you some idea of the kind of words you can use for each of them. First, size. Changing the size of objects or places makes a character feel small and defenceless, or giving an object unnatural size makes it feel threatening. Closed in or very open spaces can also create tension because there is either little room to move in or no protection from the wilderness. Second is time. Daylight isn't scary, so placing the narrative in darkness, the witching hour, midnight or the early hours, makes it a little more uncomfortable. These are quiet times, and historically, times of darkness are times when beasties and monsters lurk, and you should always give them shadows to lurk in. Third, the weather. Horror stories are often set during the coldest times of winter or during lightning storms or when the air is thick with mist or fog. Cold makes us uncomfortable, and not being able to see clearly or sudden flashes of lightning that blind in darkness really build the uncanny feeling and tension. Likewise, unexpected warmth in a cold place can be alarming. Remember, full darkness isn't as scary as half light. The shapes and shadows are things that are often more uncanny than kind of the full reveal of them. So what you imagine is always more scary. Fourth is malignancy. Now, the word malign means bad. So to describe something as malignant in this case is to give it bad intentions or strange intelligence. If you can describe an object as thinking bad thoughts or moving in strange ways, that creates tension. And if you can turn its normal movement into something unnatural, that develops the idea of the uncanny intelligence behind it. Now, fifth is wrongness. Well, this is rather open. Essentially, if things feel wrong, that develops tension. Silence or strange unexplained noises, shapes that change without reason. If it feels wrong, it creates the uncanny feeling. Wrongness is hard to define, but easy to identify once you have it. So, using these ideas, we should think about our prompts and bringing the uncanny to a playground. So, to develop our ideas, we're going to start with a playground in daylight. Think about a playground and its activities. Seesaw, climbing frame, swing, slide. Whatever you remember from your favourite playground, or you can Google a few images to work from. I'm going to start with a climbing frame and describe it as I see it. Tall plastic boxes of pastel colour standing together. A place of potential imagination waiting to be filled with screeching children. Shining in the sunlight, wide open archways with smooth slides to ride down, handholds to climb up again. Rooms connected to rooms with counters and places to hold sticker trays or play shops. Potential for play unlimited. So now I'm going to use some of the 5 uncanny ideas to turn this into something a little spooky. Looming towers of faded plastic, the skeleton of a strange beast rotted by the sun. Shadowed by faint moonlight, the gaping mouths unfurled long tongues waiting to snatch up the unwary. Caves connecting caves, each holding the ghosts of old memories in their cobweb corners, a place of uncertain echoes. Can you see how I've taken each sentence and changed the feeling, made it uncomfortable and uncanny? Now I want you to pick another playground element, not the swing yet, so this is just a practice run. Look at your seesaw or slide or whatever, and describe it in daylight. Then, turn it around and make it uncanny. Take 10 minutes. Now we're on to the writing task. So imagine your narrator, your viewpoint, moving through a playground at midnight. Describe 3 elements in turn, finishing with the swing. So, paragraph each, give or take. This is a narrative piece, so we need to think of the flow of ideas and how we're directing our focus. I'll include a word bank of interesting horror words that you can use on the blog. This piece is short, so you should have plenty of time to come back and dare and really craft your ideas and build a really spooky location. It's best if you imagine this as the opening to a story, so you're kind of setting the scene. And one question, we don't necessarily need to answer it, but we need to think about it. Why is the swing swinging if there is no wind? This should take about 15 to 20 minutes. So once you've finished your writing, it's nice to get somebody else to read it. Pass it to your mum, your dad, a friend, and just get them to give you an opinion. Okay? Just to get a small opinion. They might pick out on some of the scary details, might pick out on some of the language you've used. It's nice to hear that kind of voice. And as part of that, we're going to reflect, as we normally do on every prompt. So our 3 questions for this week are: this playground is or is not scary because, I enjoyed writing whatever because, and one thing I struggled with was, and to improve this I will. Now last week I said I'd do more on reflection this week. And I've decided that it should be a video on its own rather than try and stick it on the end of this one. So there's going to be a bonus video on Wednesday next week. And I'm actually going to do 1 bonus video every month to pick up on a skill that I haven't had the time to look at in the prompt videos. So I'm going to read you my piece and then I'll draw next week's prompt. So this is my piece. The playground. The mist was thick in places, swirling as I moved across the grass and up onto the rubber playground floor. It moved beneath my feet like the skin of a sleeping creature. Distant yellow streetlights gave the air a sickly glow, as looming towers of faded plastic appeared stranding on the rubber sand like the skeleton of a strange beast rotting in the sun. Shadowed by faint moonlight, its gaping mouths unfurling long tongues waiting to snatch up the unwary. Its rib cage was a line of caves connected to caves, each holding the ghosts of old memories in their cobweb corners. My questing foot finds a can in the gloom. It cannons away and strikes something with a sharp clang. Echoes are swallowed by the mist. Swaddled by silence, I move to where the sound began. A face appears, bold and comic and bright, a manic smiling ghoul painted on the side of a yellow hump. The eyes are chipped and slightly uneven, white catchlights giving it a manic energy. Arms stretch out to either side to cradle or to grab. I step beyond its reach. The spindly frame of a gallows appears and fades back beneath the mist. Spidery thin metal legs rise at an angle to a central spine with old hooks and dangling chains. Water droplets gather and fall down the metal, clinking ghostly from link to link. One seat remains, one cage-like baby seat. It swings slowly as the chain crackles and creaks beneath the weight of memory. I reach out to still it. The seat is warm. The next. Ooh, that was easy. 1, 8,